Hey everyone, good to have you back. All right, in this video, we're talking about something pretty cool, which is environment post processor. I repeat, environment post processor. What is the use of environment post processor? Say you built an application that'll be deployed to several regions, right? Now, Java has a way of detecting regions or countries and the like, right? Via the inbuilt properties. However, you want to be sure that for a particular region, it actually picks the right, for a particular region or country, it picks the right property, and every bean that is created, right? I use the word every bean that is created, make use of that property. So, in other words, before the beans are created, you want to ensure that that property has the right one and is injecting the right one into it. I hope you understand the concept. Without further ado, let's get into it. So, the way we do it is number one, we just basically create a package, right? Or how I would do it basically. I create a package to bring everything in one particular sphere. Environment processor. I have environment processor. Then I'm going to create a very first custom environment processor. All right. Then we'll implement environment post processor. Yeah, so when we implement, then we implement the method. Okay, now having done that, so we have this as a first step. Just a quick one. In case you're developing an application and you see these markers, these squiggly lines, and you're seeing something like annotate parameter with that not null and the likes. So there is a handle. There's a handy dependency by JetBrains, right, which you could just bring in. Is called annotations from JetBrains, and I'll pick the latest versions. All right, so that's once we brought that in, we can then label this as not null. Yeah, so you see that goes away. So I think that should help somebody. All right, so same thing here. So that actually goes away. All right, so now that we've done that, so the next step, what to do next is pretty simple. We'll just create a map of object string, a map of a key string, and object as the value. Then place the properties. I prefer to call it props. So let's have the props. Then we have the props. We want to put in our region. Say app.region. Right. And here we want to place in, let's say, US East to 1. In the case of, let's say, Amazon, right? East to 1. Let's fix this. Just need something here. Yeah. All right, so we have that. Then the next thing we're going to do, we're going to pick this environment, which is the parameter. We're going to place this. Then we get our property sources. Then we add first. Then we add a new map property source. Then we just give it a custom name. I just call it custom props. Then I add in my props. Basically, that's the first step. So having done this, you have said when this application loads up, the app region should be US East 1. So what does this signify? So you could have a, say, HTTP clients or REST clients. So I'm just going to place a comment here. Use or load from Vault or any external source. So let's say we've loaded it. After loading it in, while the application is starting up, then we'll just inject in here, right? If there are several properties, you could just loop through and just inject it here. I hope that is clear. Let me just add that to if those who probably look at the GitHub repo sometime later. You could also loop through, or just say you could loop through and add as many props as required. All right, so that is one way to do this. Required. Okay, that should be a Q. All right, so that is one way to basically do it. Now, we're not done. The next thing we're going to do, we're going to bring in a famous directory that has existed from the time of CoreSpring, right, from inception basically, which is the meta-inf, meta-inf, right? Then we create a file called spring.factories. You see, Spring recognizes it. Spring.factories. Now that we've done this, we are going to, within the spring.factories, we will then create a org. So basically we need is the org dot spring boot dot env. It has to be env. Yeah, because they're different ones. Okay, env, which is located. Cool. Right? Env. Then we bring in this guy, which is everything here, our new processor dot custom processor. So basically that's how we do it. Now this is deprecated, right? This is deprecated, as you can see, is deprecated, and it's used in favor of org.springboot.environment processor. So we could, I think this also works. So take this out, this also works. I just saw this now. Okay, so we could also verify. All right, so that being said, so let's pick one of our services that we've used in time past. Let's just inject add value. Remember, the add value is not from Lombok, it's from Spring Framework. All right, then app.region, then Spring, then I'll do a private string region. So I'm just gonna come in here and just say, then log.info, then I'll say region from post processor. All right, so that being said, let's run this and let's see how it plays out. All right, so you can see, if you look at this, region from post processor. So that's basically how it works, guys. It's pretty simple. If you have external configs from Vault, from any external source, you want to load before any being initialized, right? That's basically how you do it. Now, you would see all these are already running once the bean is initialized. So let's put a breakpoint in here. Let's put a breakpoint in here and let's run this. So you can see, check the console before anything is loaded at all. Before any bean is loaded, it has already recognized that this property needs to be injected. So in this regard, you could have made a call here with an HTTP client or whatever, however you want to. You can't use Spring REST client because the bean is not loaded up at this point. So use something external, either Vault and either you load from Vault, however you want to load it in. You bring it in, then you can then place that in, and it will load for that region. It loads in the property for that region, and you are able to do so. All right. So let's release this. All right, pretty cool, right? Okay, so let's do something else. Let's take something else. So what if another typical example we could look at is, let's say we want to change APIs based on region, right? We have several APIs based on region. How would we do that? So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna say, let's create another one. I'll call it region API environment post processor. All right, the same thing. You don't do anything different. Same thing, right? I have this environment processor. This comes in, then I load this in. All right, so I'm gonna place in my markers. I've not know. All right, so now we have this. Let's say for each region we're gonna have several ones. Okay, now in this case we have a property, and for that property we want to ensure that the URLs for that region, let's say a typical scenario could be if you're in Asia, right? Let's say you have AWS Asia, AWS Africa, right? For Asia, I want to point to a particular URL to do some certain action. For Africa, I want to point to a particular URL to do the same action. So let's do something like a switch. Then I'll call it region. So let's have a string region. Then that works. So we could have, let's say, a system. Just thinking about it. Okay, so we could have okay, so let's use system.getProperty for now. I would basically modify later. Get.env. So let's just have something like app underscore region. Then I place in the region here. Then I have a URL. I'm going to yield it. So I'm going to have a URL. So let's say string URL app URL. So let's just app URL. All right. So if the region is case Let's say the region is Asia. Region is Asia. I want the app URL to be equal to, let's say, HTTPS. Then I have Asia, say Asia hyphen API .company.com. Let's have this. Then let's say it is Africa. Yeah, we're gonna break this. Yeah, break. Then if it's Africa, case Africa, then we have app URL that equals to, I'll just copy this. Don't copy, guys. Just copy this. Then I'll change this to Africa. So the same company, different regions. Then let's default. Then break. Let's break. Then default. Then default. I'll just say app URL equals to, let's default to Europe. Right? Let's default to Europe. Europe. All right. So default to Europe. All right. That being said, now we do the famous thing, the same thing. We just bring in your where. So just copy this. We'll just make some adjustments. So I'm gonna say external API. So let's just call it external API. That's what we're looking for. Let's say external dot API. Now I'm going to pass in my API URL. So API URL, then I'm going to change this. Let's call it region URLs. This name doesn't matter really. You could basically have any name in here. So I'm sure you're thinking about it, guys, right? So it can be enhanced switch. Okay, so we've done this enhanced switch. Okay, all right. So the recommended we use enhanced switch, which is pretty cool also. All right, so we could basically have this, right? So we've been able to actually switch this. Now remember, we're not done. The next thing we need to do, we need to register this, right? So to register this, the same thing we have in here. We'll have this, we have this. This time around we have what minutes? This time around we have the boot processor. Then we have the com.environment processor, the region environment processor. All right, so we have this. All right, so I think I did this wrong. It should be a comma. I believe it should be a comma. Then let's make it a new one. Okay, I think this should be the right process. All right, so you register both. Now after registering both, remember, let's check our properties. Let's get in here. Remember, we are expecting an app.region, and the app.region must tell us which to pick. The cool thing is, remember, you'll be deploying to a server, right? Deploying to a server. So the server will basically carry the region name like Asia, Africa, or however you want to place it in. You probably have exported the value in. The way you do that in Spring Boot to mimic that, you can come to, there is something called, let's check this out. There's something called the run config, the run modification config. So in this run config, you could add values. You could add environment variables. So in this environment variables, I can put this in and default it to, say, Africa. Capital A, Africa, right? Apply this, right? Let's change this to Asia. Let's change it to Africa. So I'm simulating a server here, right? Africa, right? Asia. So what did I do again? Come to this window, come to your application, right click, come to more run or debug, go to modify run configuration. You modify run configuration, click on modify options, then come to environment variables. Now under environment variables, you can place in your default, so that the reason for this is this will fetch this. It will fetch the app_region and it will load it into the application. Then based on the region that you have, so you're simulating, oh, I'm currently in Asia or Africa, it will pick the right URL, and the right URL will be used to load the bin or do whatever you want it to do. So I'm going to come here, I'm going to do the same thing, right? A value, not Lombok value, right? A value, then the same thing, then I have app.region, app.region. I have app.region. Then I'm gonna place in. Oh, is it app.region? What am I saying? App.region. Oh, sorry. What did I call it now? Sorry. What's my? Yeah, external API. Sorry, external API. My external API. Then I have a private string external API. External. Yeah, external API. Hope I named it so. Yeah, external API. All right, external API. Okay, so I have my external API. Then my component service, my external API. I'm going to place this in. I'm going to say deploying. I'll say deploying to region. Deploying to continent. Let's use the word continent. Deploying to continent, and I'm going to put external API. All right. So with this being said, let's run the application. So I'm going to go ahead and place a breakpoint here. Let's see what this brings in. So let's run this. All right, so this is the first one. Let's release it. This is the second one. All right, so you can see. So it picks up it actually picks it up, which is the environment variable we set, which is the app region Africa. So you can imagine what's going to happen. It's going to pick Africa. Then, as you can see, it has picked HTTPS Africa, right? That's what we have here. Then release this. You see that actually playing out, and you can see deploy to continent Africa. I hope this pretty much makes sense, guys, right? So it's a case of before any bean is actually loaded in, you are able to load in some configurations which is able to dynamically change how the application will behave or the configuration loaded based on some props, right? In our case, we use two explanations. Number one, we use app.region, and I put in some comment here. You could load from any external source, right? And you could loop through and as many props as required, right? Then for the region-based region API environment post-processor, what we did was we load this guy up. Now remember, we could not use environment here. I hope you know there is something called environment we could use where you want to load this property. This property doesn't exist anywhere. So you're trying to load it from the server. So which means the server must have exported this, right? So the server must have exported this in the environment variable of that server or computer, so to say. Then we load it in. That's why we're pitching. This is a core Java. This is from Java Lang. It's a core Java. It's a core Java way of loading environment variables. So we loaded it in, and we're able to actually get this done. Defaulted to Africa and moved on. And when we actually loaded it, we see things working as usual. I hope this is pretty more clear. Now, what are the real life situations I've used it? Now, if you know about structured logging in Spring Boot, structured logging have two ways. So you could use console and could use something called a structured formatter, right? The console will just print everything as it is, nothing changes. You have this default in. But if you use a structured logging, you have everything as JSON, right? I've used that in an application before I built, where I used this environment post processor to be able to dynamically switch. So I created a property. So the way I was able to do that, if I were to quickly, I created a property and I did something like is structured login enabled. Structured login enabled, right? Something like this. So login enabled, true, false. So it's true or it's false. So this already set is true or false. So I then come in here, right? I loaded in that property, which is a structured login, true or false. If it is false, I use a console bit. If it is true, I use a structured login, because the structured login also works with properties. If you set it to console, it will actually use the one for console. If you set it to the structured formatter, to the structured formatter. So I was able to use that to dynamically play between production and UAT. Reason being that when in production, we always want to keep it as JSON, so that all our log, all our published things like ELK, which is Elasticsearch, Elasticsearch Logstash and Kibana, could be able to pick it up and format it properly. And if it's for console, it's easier when I'm actually debugging to be able to get things done. All right, I hope this has been super useful, right? If you have any comments or you don't fully understand how this works, or you miss something important, I recommend you go through the video again. And if something is amiss, drop it in the comments. I'll get to read it and then answer the question swiftly. With that being done, I'm going to check this into GitHub, and you can be sure you find it in that same GitHub repository. Thank you for your time. I'll see you guys in the next video.